right, well, it's 4 o'clock. So, first of all, just appreciate the Christmas tree. This is my kind of Christmas tree over here. Waking up on Christmas morning with that in the corner. Yeah. All right. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. And, Wesley, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So, welcome, one and all, to the Creepypasta lesson. We're going to start this out with a question. What is Creepypasta? A short story written for the purpose of unsettling or disturbing the reader. B, a website dedicated to these stories. C, a seriously cool and original horror fiction. D, all of the above. Or E, Halloween spaghetti. The answer being, of course, E, Halloween spaghetti. We're going to be talking about recipes, nothing scary. Yes, it's all of the above. Creepypasta is amazingly slang for copy pasta. The internet has developed its own language, its own lingo, and for some reason, pasta-related humor, possibly derived from a spelling error, is what came out of it, and it became what we have today, which is creepypasta. Think like chain letters or chain emails. The only difference is that these have grown and become their own creation, started an own life of their own online.
All right. So, why should you know about it? Okay. So, if you're a horror fan like me, you're irresistibly drawn to these kinds of things. So, you need to know about this. You know, someone's a horror fan. Unfortunately, I don't know enough of them, but obviously there's some here in the chat because you guys are giving me some movie suggestions. So you have patrons who are horror fans. And this is my favorite. There's some really good original fiction on the Creepypasta site. I mean, really good, like keep Wesley awake at night good. Not so much me because I don't get scared that easily, but really, really good stuff. And plus, hey, knowledge is power. Sleep is overrated. Stay up with a good horror story. Why not? Now, nobody can really overestimate the allure of horror. Okay. I mean, we all have that urge that, like, when we see something really gross or whatever, oh, come here, you got to see this, or you smell something bad, you have to share it, right? It's the same thing with horror. Okay. Horror is something that we can process, like those scary feelings. And so, for kids, they can deal with those big feelings, growing independence, difficult, uncomfortable issues, push the limits by exploring those subjects through horror. It's a way of externalizing those big feelings in a way that's safe, but also starts good conversations. And like I said, we are all drawn to the things that we're told not to look at, especially teens. So talking about this, takes away some of the mystique, but it also gives you an opportunity to talk about some of these larger topics that horror tends to explore where other maybe genres do not.
Okay, so choose your poison well. This comes with a grain of salt. So ground zero for creepypasta on the internet is an archive called creepypasta.com or creepypasta.org. This site has new, upcoming, and classic stories, creepypastas, you name it, but it's old, it's not well developed. It can be a little bit janky. There's also an app that you can download through Google Play or the Apple App Store. On Tumblr, the hashtag creepypasta is an active hashtag that includes stories plus fan art, memes, and more. Reddit, especially the Creepypasta subreddit, which has more than 500,000 subscribers, is home to tons of stories, images, and more. To go to these specifically, follow the text that you see on the screen, reddit.com/r/creepypasta or r/no sleep, just to be completely submerged into these stories. Not only that, but YouTube, there are an absolute ton of people that will do voiceovers, act these out, podcasts. They'll examine them, show you where these stories come from. And as I was saying earlier, as people were joining in, I made the mistake of trying to review some of these so that I would have some information to go on. And what I stumbled upon was a YouTube channel that was just about found recordings, like cassette tapes that someone found, and they started to listen to it. And just that sound, how much they put into it, the actual click of the tape recorder turning on, the static going behind it, like the footsteps, everything, it really sucks you in. So if you want something that's great for that, go to YouTube. The final note on this is the SCP archive, which is just an amazing archive online that we're going to talk about more in depth later, but it is a classified organization. We'll touch on that more here in a little bit. But as I said earlier, take this with a grain of salt. Whenever you're going online, the best way to protect yourself is to be able to identify anything that is a little bit dangerous. Being a public entity or a public school, you'll have protections in place to protect your kids, protect yourself and your system, but anything you can identify first before you even get to it is the best way to protect yourself. Exactly. One of the main things that I can say personally to stay away from is 4chan or any Chan message board. Unlike Reddit, users never need to make an account or pick a username, even an anonymous one. That means participants can say and do virtually anything they want. There is very little accountability or moderation for those message boards. It also means you can't message other users or make any kind of social relationship. It's just chaos and anarchy. On top of that, building off of that, is just, well, dangerous. There's also other sites like somethingrotten.com, which amazingly still exists to this day. It's just a dangerous place, but this is where apparently some of these got their start. Now we have more acceptable venues to actually get this information from, thanks to the archive like SCP and creepypasta.org.
Okay, so I don't know, a lot of you are aware of the Momo challenge. This happened a little while back. It started with reports of a suicide in Latin America that was supposedly due to this WhatsApp terror game that was challenging teenagers to kill themselves and commit acts of violence. Now, they were never able to establish a clear connection between the suicide and this supposed game, but somebody saw it, got freaked out. Next thing you know, hysteria spreads like wildfire. There was no terror challenge with this game. It just didn't happen. This was basically an urban legend that spread, and everybody all of a sudden thought that this was happening, but it wasn't actually happening. Now, part of the reason that this got so crazy was because we did have a story, a creepypasta story, that was associated with a real life stabbing, and that happened in 2014 with the Slender Man stabbing. So when this Momo challenge came along, people were like, oh, but do you remember that this happened? So, kids are doing this, and oh my gosh, this is like horrible. We've got to protect them. However, this is the actual piece of artwork that was used as supposedly part of the Momo challenge, and it's a piece of art called Motherbird by Kazuki Aiso, and it has absolutely nothing to do with this challenge to commit violence or kill yourself. It was done for a completely different reason. So this is an example of what happens when internet and hysteria join hands and start talking. You get innocuous internet jokes, memes, things like that are dubbed as dangerous trends, whether they exist or not. But as soon as somebody says that it exists, then somebody will catch on and go, oh my gosh, kids are doing this, and everybody starts to freak out. So you have to really be aware of these kinds of things when you hear them. Do your research, check if this is actually happening, or this just some panicked person that all of a sudden started spreading this hysteria and somebody else grabbed it, because hysteria is definitely infectious. It's probably worse than COVID. So the Atlantic tailors Lorenz, and there's a link there to the article if you're interested in reading it. He pointed out that there's a host of so-called deadly teen crazes that have circulated widely, only later to be debunked. The Momo Challenge has similar trappings as the Blue Whale Challenge, which was another supposed online suicide game with a series of tasks spread out over 50 days. That internet game was ultimately found to be as bogus as reports of hordes of kids eating Tide Pods or snorting condoms. Yes, those also were hoaxes. Now, I'm not going to say that there weren't kids that probably did take up this challenge, but it didn't start that way. This is probably what started it. when it did happen, but it was not as widespread or anywhere near as big a thing as they ever made it out to be. So be aware that these kinds of things happen. And when you check these things out, do your research. When you hear somebody talking about this, don't just go, oh my gosh, this is happening, and spread it. Go and take a look and see what's going on. Make sure that it's real before you warn somebody that's really an urban legend. So now, resources and tips for parents. If you want to take a look at these different resources that I have here, there is a Creepypasta page, a wiki parent page, that gives parents some tips for how to deal with creepypasta. This can help with librarians as well. There are also lots of apps and software out there. You can do all kinds of research trying to find these different apps, but there's lots of things out there that will help you track where your kids are going and how long they're staying there, seeing what they're doing, and you can put controls in place. There are ways you can block things. I'm a parent, and I'll tell you from experience, your kids are probably better on the computer than you are. Your patron teens are probably better on the computer than you are. I mean, it's just kind of a fact. They were born with these things in their hands. So anything that you can put in place to stop them from going places or to monitor their content, they're going to find a way around, or they're going to do it somewhere else. They're going to do it with their friends who aren't monitored. They're going to find a way around it. So my advice to librarians, to parents, to anybody who's worried about their kids dipping into this world of horror, or anything on the internet for that matter, have an honest conversation. Don't talk down to them, but have an honest conversation about, hey, I know you want to explore. I know you're curious, and that's totally cool. I want you to be questioning and looking and finding out things about things, but I want you to understand what the dangers can be, and that I'm not trying to keep you from exploring. What I'm trying to do is keep you safe. So we're going to talk about smart ways to explore, so that you can keep yourself safe and I don't have to worry about you, and I'm not constantly going, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Let's just have this talk about, how safe you can be. This is a really good article, thesafewise.com. It's got some good conversation starters and helping you to get that conversation started, how to talk to them about this. And yes, Rachane says that's a good comment. Be a part of their lives. Be aware of what's going on with them. Talk to them. You'd be surprised how often teens actually really enjoy sitting down and having an honest conversation when you're talking to them like they're people instead of like they're kids and they don't know what they're doing. The world, there's so much information at their fingertips nowadays. Never underestimate what they know, but you can sometimes overestimate their emotional ability to deal with what they know. So keep those lines of conversation open and be aware of what your kids are doing and be a part of their lives. Watch scary movies with them. Texas Chainsaw Massacre brings people together. I love that. That's an awesome comment. Thank you, Lauren. But no, watch horror with them. Like I said, big topics, big emotions, big feelings, big things being dealt with in these. Good conversations can happen here. Don't be afraid to pull that thread and jump down the rabbit hole. So, Channel Zero. All right. If you guys have not yet checked out Amazon Prime's Channel Zero, I mean, you need to treat yourself and go there. They've taken some of the most famous and fabulous creepypastas and turned them into serial television. They're amazing. So, that tooth monster. Okay, so I was talking earlier, I like horror. I don't get scared easily. That tooth monster thing, that thing freaked me out. That haunted my dream for a little while. I mean, it's all made of baby teeth. Yeah. Candle Cove is the name of that story. No End House, which is another example I have there, was also really, really good. There's 4 of them. There's supposedly a 5th on the way. Highly recommend. Production values are amazing. The acting is really good. The writing is good. And like I said, they're based on creepypastas that started as just simple original horror fiction on the internet, and now here they are in your home on Amazon Prime, and you can watch them, and they're really good. You should check them out. Now, YouTube. So Wesley touched on this earlier. YouTube is a place where there's lots of horror content and lots of creepypasta. People are taking creepypasta and they're interpreting it using, interpretation skills, reading skills, theater skills. They're adding backgrounds and video and putting their own spin on these things. There's different ones depending on what kind of narrator you're looking for. Some of them have really great voices. Some of them like to add more background and history and really try to convince you this is happening. Others like, where's the one that likes true content? I think it's Corpse Husband. He really likes a lot of true stories. So a lot of what you get on him is like really creepy stuff that like really happened. So, you know, there's a trigger warning there. If you don't sleep easily because horror that's real, don't listen to Corpse Husband. Although we do have two examples. So I'm going to go ahead and have them play the examples. The first one is from Mr. Nightmare. He narrates a wide range of horror material. And the second one is from Corpse Husband. And just a couple examples are pretty quick of some creepypasta stories that you can listen to on YouTube.
It was a late night in the mountains, and a man was driving home from work on the same road that he takes home every night. It was a very quiet road, and hardly ever was there another car passing by this late. As the man drives on, he comes across a car accident. The only thing, the car wasn't damaged at all. It almost seemed as if it was deliberately placed in the middle of the road. The man drove past and saw two people lying in the middle of the road. He pulls up in front of the alleged accident and then looks back to see that the two people were now sitting up, looking directly at him, along with 20 or so eyes reflecting in his taillights from the surrounding bushes. He slams on the gas, speeding away from the scene, promising to never drive down this road again.
That was a nice quick one. So go ahead and pull up the next one. It's from Corpse Husband, which the name alone is like pretty cool. Not to be confused with Corpse Bride.
Here where I live. It's on one of the back roads of the Alaskan new growth forest in one of these valleys. They say that if you drive down this road on a day when the sun is shining so brightly as to make everything appear black and white, then you might come across a girl walking along the side of the road. She is said to be easy to recognize because whether it is summer or winter, she is always wearing a heavy wool overcoat and a set of oversized headphones like those big skull candy headphones you could find in the stores. According to this story, if you drive up alongside her and roll down the window, you might hear her singing. The song some people around here say is Rizzo Cerez's Gloomy Sunday. If you interrupt her, asking the question before she's finished the song, it's said that her answer will be, I can't remember, and that in the next town that you enter, you will be arrested for the kidnap and murder of this girl. However, if you were to wait for her to finish and then ask the question being, when did it last snow? And this is to be asked no matter what season it is. She will give you one of three possible answers. If she says Thursday, you will continue to drive ahead as if nothing has happened. But though you will be able to see and control your actions, it will be through a thick fog, as if you were asleep. You will live out the rest of your life in this empty dream state, and when you die, your soul will be condemned to a black emptiness. If the answer is today, then you are far more fortunate. You will continue on to your destination without event, and upon returning home, find that your greatest wish has become real. However, if her answer is last Friday, then may whatever entity controls our fates have mercy on you. You will vanish for over a year. No one will have the slightest clue where you have gone, and your family, in despair, will give you up for dead. Then, on a Friday during the following year's snowmelt, your body will be found hanging from an old black spruce in one of these swamps. Your face will have been eaten away and your body is in such a state of decay that you'll only be identified by your dental records. Your spirit, however, will be trapped, forced to walk that road every day when the sun is so bright that everything seems black and white. How do I know this? I have never done this myself, only heard the stories. But I have also lived up here for most of my life. So I can tell you this honestly. 6 years ago, this entity was a little boy. Then they found my sister.
Wow. Is that cool or what? That is so much fun. So if we could go back to the slides, but yeah, I know we could like spend all day there. It's so cool. And he reads, his voice is great. Yeah, he's got that gravelly kind of, yeah, this is going on and she's going to come out and get you. Anyway, here's some others. Be Bust is Australian. He's got some of the scariest stories on Reddit. We got Dr. Horror. He likes to add like sources of the legends, videos of supposed encounters, and then Mr. Creepypasta, who exclusively reads creepypasta. So yeah, I strongly suggest you explore some of these guys, you know, maybe with the lights on, maybe not alone. Depends on how well you handle horror.
All right, so getting into the text examples, the SCP archive is one of the examples that we have listed out as what makes up Creepypasta. The SCP archive stands for Secure, Contain, Protect Foundation. There are nearly 6,000 items contained in this archive, and each one has its own little code, its own little message next to it that lets you know what it is and where it's archived at. The organization is responsible for capturing and containing paranormal phenomena. And this can be anything as mundane as a bottle of super glue or a flask of water, all the way to the literal herald of the apocalypse is kept inside a ball under the earth and has strict protocol to keep it locked away. And each document is written out like it's a redacted document from the CIA or the FBI, and it can only be read with appropriate clearance. And even then, after you mouse over some of the words to try and expose them, they're blacked out and redacted. You can't see them, especially names and dates. The archive is an absolutely massive community-based project. Just about any story can be submitted. And both me and a friend who I introduced to it, I think last year, have just spent hours upon hours digging through these, because once you start, it's hard to stop. Going on next, however, is a shortened list of creepypasta. So we already touched on No End House, which is exactly as the name says. There's a challenge where you go into a house, and if you can make it all the way through, then you win. I'm not going to say anything else about it because I'm probably going to spook myself again. But it's worth a read, and apparently the series is even better. And being able to actually realize it or see it, that's just amazing. One we're going to be touching on later is called the Russian Sleep Experiment and Slenderman. But some of the older ones, like Jeff the Killer, are still popular to this day and can be found on the Creepypasta wiki or archive that we mentioned earlier. Each of these stories is an urban legend that has gained notoriety online and has been copied and pasted between many message boards on social media, you name it. But what really sells it is that each one has like a minor element of truth that makes the story more relatable or believable. Each one makes you think, yeah, okay, I can see that happening. And one of those is going to be the Russian Sleep Experiment that we're going to be covering later. Our first example that we're going to bring up is Slenderman. And let me set the scene. Back when I was in college, I spent all of my late hours at Murray State University's library on the bottom floor in a corner way in the back. And every now and then I'd take breaks and I'd start reading these. And it was a horrible waste of time, but I did it anyway because it was fun. This is one of the more well-known creepypasta myths. It originated as a text and photo combination story, and I think that it actually was first a challenge on Something Rotten. Again, stay away from that website. What it focuses on, however, is found photography, found videos, found recordings that introduce you to this ethereal creature that just kind of appears and disappears. It lives in liminal spaces. It hides out in the periphery of your vision. And I'm getting chills again talking about this. But as you can see there to the right, you see These photos, they're from actual websites, actual city websites where you can find these as examples in historic archives, and somebody has gone through and taken this faceless creature and put it in the background, and that's Slender Man. The original story behind him is that he appears and normally he kidnaps children. Where he takes them, we don't know, but they're gone. Other people see him, and as soon as they do, he starts pursuing that person. Then next, the Marble Hornets that we mentioned here are one of the groups that took this myth and just ran with it. They started out with a YouTube series, which I do highly recommend. It is amazing. And then they also released a full-length movie. And I think actually there was a recent movie, again, that came out not too long ago. Unfortunately, though, Slenderman was also in the news, which Sherry will be touching on that here in a little bit. The next slides, however, are more examples of this found photography. These are images, again, from actual archives from cities, from somebody else's Facebook post, and you can see just in the background, very faintly, there's a creature staring at them. The idea that something is watching you is inherent in our survival mechanisms. So just the idea that something is out there that you can't see, that might be just staring at you, waiting for you to drop your guard. Again, they're watching children, ready to snatch them away. Just, it creeps you out, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. I believe this also plays into the whole, kidnapping of the early 2000s, 90s, 80s that was so popular in media. But now there was this faceless creature that was there just ready to reach out and take someone away.
All right, so unfortunately, this story inspired two 12-year-old girls to lure their friend into the woods and stab her. They were attempting to become proxies of Slender Man. This happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin. We had Anissa Wire and Morgan Geyser, and they took their poor friend Peyton, invited her over to a sleepover, supposedly to celebrate a birthday, and tried to kill her. They wanted to be proxies of Slender Man. They felt that the only way to keep Slender Man from killing their family was for them to basically offer up their friend. Now, the girl survived and she recovered. You can actually find videos of her talking about her horrific ordeal and the aftermath of that on YouTube. These two young women already had some mental health issues. One is still confined in a mental health facility, and the other one has been released, but she's going to be under supervision until the age of 37 because one of them was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. The other one had depression and all kinds of other issues. But this story, they kind of got caught up in it and carried away in it and completely absorbed it and brought it into their lives. And this happened. And like I said, as I talked about earlier with the Momo challenge, because this happened, that was why that Momo challenge took off, because people are like, well, this happened, this must be true. This is extremely rare, but it is something to be aware of, and it's another reason for being involved in the lives of your kids. Know where they're going, know what they're talking about, pay attention to what they're becoming super interested in. Keep those lines of conversation open. I'm sure these girls' parents had no idea their children were capable of doing what they did. Fortunately, this girl did survive, but these two, the rest of their lives are being spent in institutions for the most part. And if I can get this to change instead of, yep, mine's not. You want to see if you can change the slide for me? It's not doing it for me. There we go.
So this slide is by far probably one of my most favorite creepypasta. And I know that sounds weird coming from me because I've already been saying that I get creeped out by Slenderman. But this one I like. I am a history major. Whenever I graduated Murray State University, I got a Bachelor of Science in History. And this plays directly into that fear, that paranoia that humans can do this. The Russian sleep experiment was a creepypasta, or is a creepypasta that was created in 2010. It plays off the fear of secret military testing during World War II, which is something we know happened. There were secret military tests on prisoners and POWs in World War II. In this story, 5 political prisoners who are unwilling test subjects would be put into a sealed chamber and exposed to a stimulant and forced to stay awake permanently. I believe that the actual text had them going for like 30 days straight, is what they wanted. The military wanted some stimulant that could make a super soldier, someone that could go on forever. For most of a month, these 5 people stayed awake and then changed, eventually becoming these crazed, disfigured monsters. One person, like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks in, he just started screaming. And he didn't stop screaming. He screamed for 4 hours straight until his vocal cords ripped and everything went quiet. And when the scientists were trying to contact them saying, hey, are you guys still alive in there? They got like one person that said the affirmative. Eventually, the scientists say, okay, we can't see inside anymore. They've plastered paper over the windows and they're not responding to us anymore. So we got to go in. So they turn off the stimulant. As soon as that happens, the people inside start screaming, turn it back on, turn it back on. We can't go to sleep because as soon as they do, they're going to die. Well, they go in anyway, and what meets them is just a charnel house. One person's dead, lying on the floor. There's just a layer of blood and water on the ground, and the remaining 4 members of the prisoners have cannibalized each other, mutilated each other, and are just staring with no lips at the scientists, begging still for them to turn on the gas. And I'm going to end it there because there's a lot more to that story and I don't want to ruin it, but it is great. The main image that you guys aren't seeing here is another one of those found photography images. It's a wide-eyed, wide-mouthed creature sitting on a bed, all like twisted up into a knot, just staring at a camera. And this is another example of someone taking a photo of an animatronic and using it for their creepypasta.
And that image is extremely unsettling, which is why it's not here.
Yeah. It's one of those that, again, keeps me up at night. Jessica, yes, this is exactly something that we could see happening thanks to the examples that we've seen already in World War II and World War I with the testing of mustard gas. This slide here is about found photography. Now, these 2 images, you can see them. Yeah, no problem. You can see
I
them.
wanted to, but I was nice.
No, we got to be kind in this. We're already putting a lot here. These 2 images you can see being attached to creepypasta stories to try and uplift them, to make them more believable. The one on the right is a ghost girl captured on a camera in upstate New York. In reality, this is probably just someone's family photo while they were on a hike, and someone's oversaturated it, and that's it. So it looks like it's see-through. On the left, however, you see an obviously bloody woman hooked up to IVs and machines trapped in some abandoned building. In reality, this is a still from the 1991 film Begotten, where God dies and Mother Earth births entropy, I believe. It is a wild film. I do recommend go watch it. It makes no sense, but it's great. But
it's good.
There are so many photos like this, and there's so much that can be done with them too. Just as an example, if someone were to post this online on with permission from someone else to the library's Facebook page or to their website to see if they wanted to enter into a writing competition about this, build a story about this image. Though, to be honest, might not be good depending on the age range, but there's an idea there. There's our last slide as a little tie out, but before we go to Q&A, I know that we've talked about a lot, but really how can we use this in our professions? One instance I would like to bring up before I forget about it, because I know I'm about to. There's a thing called 2-sentence horror stories. This is another example of creepypasta. You can find them on writing prompts online. They are absolutely awesome, but they're short and sweet. One of the things you can do is, depending on the age range and what your topic is, you can start posting these in-house to maybe encourage teenage writers who want to express themselves or have some sort of drawing. Another example could be someone who might be interested in voice acting. How are you going to encourage them to come out and try to participate or learn? You could have a podcasting session, a public one, where people can come in and read creepypastas just to anyone who wants to listen. Just to
Yeah,
name a
Teen
few.
Horror Fest.
Yeah.
Teen Horror Fest. Get a bunch of those YouTubes or, have a scary movie night and have some of the podcasts and things going on and just have an evening of horror and maybe a conversation that comes out of that. You could have writing challenges. I mean, what else do you think you could do with this? I mean, what kind of art projects do you think you could do with found photography? Telling them to raid like old photographs in their family. And what could they do to alter that photograph to make it a creepy image, or not even necessarily a creepy image, but that could be like a really fun kind of like art, maybe even science project. I mean, what kind of chemicals could you use to maybe alter it? What would happen if we drip this on it or that on it? So there's a lot that can be done with this kind of content. And I like the idea of like horror parties, create creepy pastas about library ghosts. That's excellent. Ooh, KDLA.
There you go. Perfect.
KDLA is a ghost? I want to know about this. Where's the ghost at KDLA? Who is it? Anybody we know? Just curious. But yeah, think about the ways that you could incorporate a little bit of horror. And of course, we're mainly talking teens here. This is not, early childhood or elementary programs, which by the way is mostly what I do. I love horror, but I do elementary programs. I don't use any of this. Of course, I don't want to scare people's children, but there's so much that you could do with this. Maybe have inspiration for costumes, maybe do an evening where you're doing like horror makeups, and then maybe write a story based on your horror makeup. Or what about taking your favorite creepypasta and turning it into a movie? Gather a bunch of teens at the library and have them see if they can film a creepypasta horror movie. Let them do sets and lighting and makeup and the whole 9 yards. There's like a lot that you can explore with this.
Yeah.
Some people have seen an upside down black pyramid on the 3rd floor, and they don't know who it could be. And we're not supposed to tell Terry that she shared this, so we won't say who this was. But that's pretty cool. So an upside down black pyramid. So what do we think that could be? So you're not allowed on the 3rd floor. Oh, right.
Oh,
That's
archives.
Awesome.
All right, so it's a cursed book then, is what you're saying.
I love it. You love it. I love it. All right. So do you guys have any questions for us about any of this? Or, I mean, you guys have been actively commenting, which is great, but is there anything you want to know? There's the Necronomicon, yeah. So we do have some time for questions.
That is something else there. Just some old texts, too, that you can find. They may be hard to find, but even finding just clipped documents, you could use that as some sort of art project. Recently, I had blackout poetry activity that I posted online for Marshall County. I bet you that we could do something similar to that, just redacted, but typing up some sort of technical document instead.
Or you could use something like that in an escape room challenge, that it's all found documents. Maybe they're lost in an old military archive and they have to use the clues they find in the files in order to get out of the room. That would be, and there's, like I said, there's a lot that you could do with this. So this is not just a really, really cool resource. I mean, there's actual like programs to be mined from this. So what do you guys think you could do with this information, this material? Anybody got some ideas while we've been watching this or talking? Yeah, genealogy. Ooh, that's good. Incorporating it with genealogy material. I like that. So, who's got the monster in the closet?
There's an example of that with Slenderman. Someone tied their family history to it going back to Germany. There's an old woodcut about a creature called Der Grossman. It's literally just an interpretation of death fighting someone with a longsword, but they used that to tie it into their family and tied it as a Slenderman who's been following his family line and killing them off.
That's fun. So it's too bad we don't still have physical card catalogs. Oh, right. You could put some like really creepy things in pl with planted cards. Local cryptids. Yeah, there's another fun tie-in,
Yeah.
you know? What cryptids do we have in Kentucky? I know there are some.
Well, Western Kentucky had the vampire cult.
That's true. Why doesn't West Virginia has some kind of creepy were thing? So out
Doesn't
west where I
Massachusetts?
was when we had Chupacabra. So Barry the lake monster from Barren River Lake. So what does Barry look like? Is he like creature from the Black Lagoon, kind of like fishy person, or
Ah,
Nessie's
okay.
cousin? Oh, okay. Okay. I get it from the loch. It's a loch. So he has a brug. And the wood bugger. Okay. Lizard man in Letcher County and the lady who hunts Bigfoot. I want to meet this woman. That's so fun. Pope Lick monster. You know, I'm sorry. I know that maybe some people live there, but Pope Lick, that when you put Pope Lick and monster together, there's just something wrong there. That's just happening wrong on so many levels. Glasgow, Kentucky. Wow. So we got lots of really cool, scary things here. So what could
Oh,
you do with these
okay.
local legends and
Lovely.
tie it into like maybe some original horror or, I mean, there's found photography. Can we find some pictures of Headless Annie? You know, what's she doing in your backyard? Nessie sent her cousin to stay with us. That's so sweet.
Well, the Poplick monster is terrifying. It's another like Jersey Devil situation.
Oh, is
Brake
it?
monster.
Okay.
Yeah, I shouldn't have looked at it.
Varmint. I love it. Varmint. Hopkins County varmint. Well, you know, you can't be in the South without a varmint. And then
Yeah,
you
that's
need a
true.
shotgun to shoot that varmint. So, well, that's really all we have, unless you guys have some more questions for us. I hope you enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. Personally, I think we could have spent the afternoon just listening to YouTubes, but you know,
Oh yes.
or I could have read you some stories in my creepy voice. Could have had some fun there. Scared Wesley.
Please don't.
All right. Well,
Dear,
I
I
hope
love
you guys
everything.
enjoyed the session. That was really a lot of, thank you. I have a lot of them. I've scared my children. Yes, I'm a mother and yeah, mean me. You're welcome. All right. I hope you
Tomato
guys
fire.
enjoyed the conference these last 2 days. Have a really wonderful afternoon. And I think I'm going to go home and watch this new scary movie I haven't seen before.
Thank you, Sherry and Wes. We enjoyed it so much. I think this is one of the most active chats I've ever seen. A plus, as
This
Laura
was
says.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of
That'd be great.
fun. A lot of fun. Thank you all so much. And just a reminder, this was recorded, so you can go back and watch it again.
Hey, sleep
If you
well,
need an extra,
everybody.
exactly, if you're having trouble sleeping. And thank you all. Thanks
Sweet
everybody
dreams.
for attending the conference. And we appreciate you, Sherry and Wes, for your time and effort. And Lori Beth, we're hoping the recordings will all be ready, hopefully within about a week or so, but definitely within the next couple of weeks. They'll all be shared out to the listserv.
Thank you for moderating. This has been fun.
Yes, it has.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Happy to have you all. Thanks, everybody.
All
Thank you.
right. Bye-bye. Bye, Wesley.